take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow any feelings of stress or tension to feel like it's leaving your body in your outward breath. Position your body in a way where you can access a feeling of calm and relaxation. And as you breathe in through your nose, start to scan your body for clues of where tension or stress may be. Because it could be your forehead, could be your jaw, your neck, your shoulders. And almost the awareness of tension is enough to dissipate that tension, so that as you breathe out, you can feel breath by breath the tension, the stress leaving your body in that outward breath, enabling you to feel deeper and deeper relaxed. I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine a time where you were in a highly resourceful state. Maybe you were doing something that needed the ability to learn and solve problems. Or maybe you needed to overcome a barrier, adversity, a challenge. And I want you to go back to that place and just observe you in a highly resourceful state. And there's something magical about watching you at a time in your life when you were in that resourceful state where your resources exceeded the demands of the challenge. And it may have been a demanding challenge, but one of the best resources is tenacity, determination, resilience. Because the human brain has the ability to create brand new neural pathways. So the first attempt at doing something isn't meant to go well. They say the first level of learning anything new is the state of unconscious incompetence. You simply don't know how bad you are at that thing because you haven't tried it. And then observe as you perhaps attempt this thing. A thing that at first you couldn't do. And maybe you're observing the second stage. Conscious incompetence. You can see what you're like when you realize you can't do that thing. But interestingly, you're in a resource state, so you don't give up. And maybe you're watching someone that can already do the thing that you can't do. Maybe you're asking for help, getting guidance, maybe learning online, it doesn't matter how. But the bridge between not being able to do something and do something is a combination of attempting, but ideally learning from someone that already has that ability. As you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to see a resourceful, tenacious, determined version of you. Perhaps even a curious version of you. Eager to learn something that is currently missing. And maybe there's clues on your face to reveal the kind of resources and emotions you were feeling at that time. When people are determined, they can furrow their brow. When they're curious, they open their eyes wide. When they're determined, the mouth is normally closed. And when they're enthusiastic and excited, maybe there's a small smile attached while they're doing whatever they're doing. The facial expression you had at the time reveals the resources and the emotions you were feeling. I want you to see a resourceful, focused, determined version of you. Perhaps overcoming a challenge or adversity until you can see what some people call the third level of learning, conscious competence, the breakthrough moment, where you can see yourself now knowing that you can do that thing that before you couldn't do. And that feels good. And it isn't long until your brain and your body automates that, until that thing that was such a big victory and accomplishment you do without even thinking. I want you to imagine you're just observing all of this, seeing a resourceful version of you, breathing in a feeling of resourcefulness, exhaling tension. And at the point where you see yourself at your most resourceful, I want you to imagine stepping into that version of you. Whatever resource you need right now, that's the resource that you're stepping into. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's confidence. Maybe determination. Maybe intrigue. Maybe self-belief, inner strength. Whatever resource would be most helpful to make a breakthrough in a different area of your life, that's the resource you're stepping into. And as you step into that, adjust your body, your breathing, your facial expressions to mimic the resource you've just stepped into. If you're stepping into confidence, feel confidence. If you're stepping into curiosity, feel curious. If it's tenacity, intrigue, perhaps the tenacity to seek clarity on a situation, feel tenacious. Breathe the way you would breathe with that resource. Feel where that resource feels like in your body. Have the expression of that resource state. And feel how good it feels to put that resource to use, to make a breakthrough, to do something you couldn't do before, to overcome adversity, to exceed a challenge or a limitation. And when every cell in your body feels that you're connected to this resource, let me know by nodding your head. And keep hold of that resource as you now imagine you're now a witness seeing a version of you that could have done with this resource at a different time in your life. Maybe you can imagine a big cinema screen nearby, or you can just picture it in your own imagination, but you're observing a version of you that would have needed this resource. But I want you to imagine seeing yourself do it the way you wish you didn't do it, just once. Maybe you can see yourself anxious, frustrated, overwhelmed. See it once, just to see the area of your life you're about to change. And when it gets to the end, just rewind it completely. Everything happens backwards before it even began. And then imagine a new version of you with this resource is now the version of you that is dealing with that same situation. They're no longer triggered. you can see them handling that situation very differently, breathing differently, thinking differently, acting differently. And I want you to see the version of you handling a situation that you wanted to have been different if that version of you had the very resource that you're feeling right now. And keep playing it, almost like a movie director, until you're happy that the scene is exactly as you wanted. And there are some directors that needed 20 different takes before they were happy with the scene. And some directors get it right in just 2 or 3 attempts. I don't know what kind of movie director you are, so keep playing it until you're happy that that version of you did it the way that you wanted to have done it. And when you see that version of you dealing with that same situation in a different way, a more useful way, a resourceful way, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And then rewind it to the beginning and step into that version of you, feeling the wonderful resources. And this time you're in your own body, a first-person perspective. And imagine exactly the same thing that happens again, but this time you are connected to these wonderful, helpful, useful resources. And this time you do it the way that you've just seen, but now in your own body. So you feel what it would feel like to do it this way. And you have a deep sensation that this is a better way of doing it. And just like when you were the director, playing it again and again until you are happy with the scene, you can do this from a first-person perspective. Maybe you change the inner dialogue to be more calm and in control. Maybe you do it again, but this time slow down the breathing. Maybe you do it again, but this time there's less tension in the neck or the shoulders. Keep doing it until you are the most resourceful you could be in this situation. Test out different variations that, if there are choices as to how you could have handled it, imagine handling it in different ways until you find the way that feels like it's the best option possible. And when you feel like knowing what you now know and accessing the resource that would be most useful, that you now know how you would have done it differently and you feel like you've experienced it that way, let me know by nodding your head. And I want your unconscious mind to accept the suggestion that when you know better, you do better. And now that you know that this is a better way of dealing with this situation, your unconscious mind will look for patterns so that anything in the future that resembles this kind of dynamic structure or situation will now trigger this resource state. Because this resource state is helpful. And I want you to think about the first time you learned to drive. Maybe it took weeks or even months. And yet now, if you were to try and learn to drive in a brand new car, it may take you just 2 or 3 minutes to get used to that new car because your brain already knows how to drive, even if it's a car you've never driven before. And now that your mind has accessed this resource in this context, it makes sense that whenever you're in a similar situation, this resource will be your first choice. And I want you to imagine testing it out. I want you to imagine going forward in time, perhaps a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and something similar but not the same happens. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe there's a challenge. Maybe something that used to trigger you happens in the future, but this time it triggers this resource state. Feel how you would feel responding to this new situation in the future. In this new, empowered, positive, resourceful way. And if your unconscious mind feels that this might be a useful way of dealing with future situations like this, let me know by nodding in your head. That's it. And the next time you sleep, your unconscious mind will go to work, preempting all the different situations that this resource may be helpful and useful. And your unconscious mind will be looking forward, waiting, hoping, anticipating that certain things happen so you can test out using this resource in this new context. Because this is you at your best. And it doesn't mean you can't learn to be even better. It's just that your unconscious mind will avoid patterns of the past that aren't useful, and instead look for opportunities to try and find patterns that are useful. Breathe in and breathe out. And imagine, perhaps 3 months from now, the most extreme thing that could happen, like the original event. You can consider it a worst case scenario. But because it's so intense, I want you to imagine you are observing yourself like you are someone else. You are observing that highly resourceful version of you, dealing with a worst case scenario that in the past would have triggered stress and anxiety and overwhelm, but your brain is hardwired now to be resourceful in these kind of situations. So I want you to imagine you are observing yourself dealing with a worst case scenario in that resourceful way. See yourself, perhaps the very first part of the experience. Notice there's a deep breath and a smile as you feel that you can handle this. Just observe yourself handling it well, because life is a game. And when you can handle one level, life will throw you more challenging levels. And in some games, to complete the game, you have to deal with the big boss at the end of the level. And if you can beat the big boss, then you've completed that game. And I want you to imagine this is that equivalent for you. A worst case scenario, but you're seeing that version of you embracing it, dealing with the challenge head on, unfazed, unflappable, resourceful, composed, confident. And again, just like the director, it may take several attempts until you're happy that you did it the way that you would want to do it in that situation. Each time you try a different version, let me know by nodding your head and then jumping it back and then trying a different version. And eventually you'll find a version that you feel is the best way of handling a worst case scenario like that, with a conviction that you could handle it if it ever happened. And when you arrive at that place, let me know by nodding your head. Rewind it to the beginning, step into that version of you, feeling all the resources, and then imagine experiencing that worst case scenario with a feeling of resourcefulness, an attitude of bring it on, I can deal with this. And you do deal with it in the optimal way because you are already primed to do well. It almost seems like the more intense the situation, the more resourceful you become. The bigger the potential consequences, the more resourceful and the more composed you're able to be in that situation. Feel that you are doing it the way you would want to do it if this thing happens, and it probably won't. And when you feel you've had the response, knowing that you can't change the variables of other people, but you can change the variables of you, when you're happy with how you handle things, let me know by nodding your head. you can keep doing it, different variations, until you're happy with a version that's the best way of dealing with this intense worst case scenario. You feel resourceful, in control, composed. That's it. Allow your body to be flooded with a feeling of dopamine that comes from a feeling of accomplishment, level completed. And you're left with a thought, a seed of an idea, that if your brain can handle a worst case scenario, how could it possibly be fazed by anything less than? I want you to get a sense that you are unlocking resources that enable you to be the best version of you in all different situations. That any time you encounter a situation that you didn't do it the way that you would have liked to, that is now an opportunity to replay that in your mind until you have it as you wanted it to be. Not because you can change the past, but because you can prime your brain and your mind to feel resourceful and confident for anything like that in the future. Every near miss, every setback is a launch pad propelling you forward. And if your unconscious mind is now excited that every setback becomes an opportunity to step forward, let me know by nodding your head. As you breathe in and breathe out, it's time to return to the present, but you take all of these wonderful resources with you. A deep conviction that you can deal with whatever life throws at you. And either you win or you learn. You either deal with this situation in a resourceful way, or you figured out you didn't quite do it the way that you wanted it to, which itself is reconnaissance to rewire your mind to connect to a resource so you can do it better in the future. Returning to the present as you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. That's it. Just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, feeling like you're connecting into the present right now. As very soon I count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. You will awaken feeling resourceful, calm, composed, confident, excited, and optimistic about the future on your horizon. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.